Eric. Just like 4 different minutes.
It's a very generous interpretation to put on Eric's greatest affection, enemy action.
All right, everybody's present and accounted for, calling the meeting to order. We were going to do minutes, but minutes are not available. Correct?
Correct.
So we'll do minutes next meeting. Weeks. October financials. I said my questions in.
Yeah, we can review your question. We could have done minutes anyways,
Why?
because we don't have a quorum of the members.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't
You
matter.
don't,
You don't
you can
vote.
vote.
have to. We had
You
that
actually
discussion
should
last time.
vote if you weren't here. Anyway.
Okay. It's an often misunderstood.
It's very
It is.
misunderstood.
It's often misunderstood. You're just accepting the legality. that
Oh, I
they
know,
take.
but normally you have to have a quorum of those who were present.
No, you do not.
No, you do not.
No.
That's the
Anymore.
point that people.
That's what we used to think. It thinks that
That's
it's
an
not
old
true.
rule that doesn't-
We actually have boards that almost completely turn over, so that means their last meeting minutes would
Oh, yeah.
never be approved.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so you can.
Okay.
Anyway, Dimitri sent in some questions. Very much thank him for sending them in, so we could have them prepared and ready. Did you want to read your question, or you want me to just read?
You
it?
can read the questions.
So question one was, New Hampshire rooms and meals. Some miscellaneous from the state for nearly the exact same amount. Is this coincidence or a coding year? The answer is that meals and rooms, 394,270 was increased by the state budget this year. And 237,174, which is in miscellaneous, is actually a grant fund, which is our second tranche of ARPA funds
Okay,
coming in,
so the rooms and meals will come
will come.
later.
Comes in December.
Okay,
Oh, the 239 is a year-end payment then.
no, it's more.
The 239, yes, that we had not, that we had budgeted for rooms and meals would come in December. So it's a year and thing.
It's a year-end payment.
But we will actually be in 394. So,
339.
Like that.
yeah, I like it when they say.
Thank you, Mickey.
Two months is still at zero. Is that something that changes at the year end? I'm gonna say yes, but it changes after the year end. It's when we're closing the books, it's an auditor adjustment that works with us to make that change.
Okay,
So it'll change after year end when we're closing the books.
Okay.
And the other one's gonna be really hard to read, so we can send this out, but the subtotal of OP funds, I guess I'm just gonna bring this around a little bit. At the end of the month-to-month budget that you get, there's a line that's subtotal of all our operating funds. So we broke that down from operating funds and just general fund, and then we pulled out what it was in October for the last 5 years, so you can kind of see it. Like I said, we'll send this out, it'll be easier, but I'll do the one that's on your list first. So the subtotal from all operating funds right now is 23.68% is where we're at. Last year, this time, we were at 27.51%. 2020 was 24.24, 2019 was 23.40, and 2018 was 22.47.
okay, so it's
So
on
the
track.
23.68 is on track, actually a little bit better than last year. And then the general fund was very similar. Right now, it's 24.91%. Last year, this time was 27.69. 2020 was 25.61. 2019 was 18 was 22.42. So we're a little bit higher. General fund, but a little operating.
I just think. Percentage wise, relevant. Are we ahead, are we behind? And I know at the end. It's easier for people. Years and
Here, stack. Finding the numbers, the percentages that you just read off.
We will send those out. They're not in your stack.
They were a response to.
They
one of
were
my
a
questions.
response to the stack you got. The questions came from that and we prepared the answers and we can email those out. So that you can see.
Oh, one more follow-up question to that. Alyssa, you were raising this.
Yes, this is the report he was actually, that has the numbers on it. So if you look at,
So this is from what those percentages were generated.
yes,
Okay.
so
and
this happens to be the current year, and then I looked at the other years.
Thank you.
You were saying, very bottom subtotal, all funds operating.
No.
Balance remaining,
Last
last
page.
page.
Last page.
Last page.
23.68. So at the beginning of the year, that number's 100, and then it trickles down towards 0,
Okay.
right? Rather than nickel and diming, hey, why is this line high? Why is this line low? Where are you at the big picture? And I bet if you look at it every year, it will look like this. Every year. Straight line, hook up in December, straight line, hook up in December. And if we saw that chart. Prior years. So if you see the line consistently going higher. Years. We will overrun the budget.
So the numbers that Ed just gave us are prior year values for
For
that.
that value, which is how much money is left. At the end of October.
Yeah, so doing quick math here, that 23 is about average.
Right.
We've had a couple
Yes.
years that were a little under that, a couple that were over that, but. we're
Because if
pretty
you
much
just
right.
extrapolate, if you say, oh, we've done 10 months, there's 2 months left. You're gonna find there's money left in the bank. But the spending in December and November are usually higher.
Right. Yep.
That's all.
Yeah, and it's weird. I mean, there's some things, most of them are due, but I know some ICMA dues for one, mine. And they're due December, so those will all get paid at one time. So it is a kind of a good way to look at it, to pick a picture in time, and October's probably a good month to pick. Like, you know, how are we trending instead of going through every single line and figuring it out. I look at a lot of the lines as we go through month to month, and then it's really good just to look at department bottom line, and I know that's what they're looking at every month, to make sure that they're within their bottom line, and they'll purposefully unspend a line if they know they're overspending somewhere else. So for this committee to get into that level of detail, it's just an exercise in trying to explain everything we're doing instead of looking at that big picture where we're going. So I appreciate that. That's something we can.
Yeah, I
continue
used to
put
have
together.
like, last year was a solid line. The year before was the dashed line, the year before that was a dotted line, and you could essentially see the last 3 years where you are now.
Mhm.
It just rolls, and it gives you an idea of how's your spending profile this year compared to prior years.
I've been on the committee a number of years now, and that's about what I remember. So typically we had around a quarter of the budget left. Something like that. By October, when we started. And it has never surprised me to see more spending happening in November and December.
Right, but to new people it may.
Yes, people have been. I think I'm just adding confirmation.
Yes.
I think this looks normal.
Anybody else have questions on revenue or spending? Would you have October financials?
I had a couple of questions on the revenue. Explanatory, not mysteries to me, if you will. I'm looking at the first line on the revenue activity, land use change tax. And just explain that to me. why we see such an extraordinary amount above the budgeted amount.
Land use change tax, if somebody takes their property out of current use.
Oh, I know what it is. I'm just
So
wondering
we
if
just-
there's an explanation for why it's almost 2.5 times the budget.
Because we have no way of knowing what people are gonna do, it's just a guess.
It's just the success of sales.
If somebody decides to sell their property and comes out of current use, we don't know if that's gonna happen
Okay,
until it does.
so it's just a reflection of successful sales in the town. Okay,
Purposeful guess on the low average, I'd
sure.
much rather it be what it is than, oh, we didn't get as much as we planned.
Are we concerned about the revenue from the motor vehicle permit fees? It's a pretty good amount below what was budgeted.
It's another one of those that we have a general idea of what the trend is gonna be over time, but we base the estimate for next year's budget on what we've seen in the past. We don't really know what's gonna happen.
Right, I don't know. In other words, is this a trend which perhaps should be reflected in the next year's budget, or is
Well, I
this an
think-
anomaly?
I think a lot of these we should look and, I'm a big fan of 5-year averages when we look at those types of things. so
Yes.
We don't follow the spikes and curves. year to
Exactly.
year.
Yes,
And we look at what our averages have been and we do that unless we know something's happening.
Yeah, well, there's an anomaly right now, which is there aren't any new cars out.
well, that's what I'm
to
wondering. So
buy.
we have to be very
So-
cautious and
So
conservative about what we
it's the
budget.
new cars that you get the big money on.
Yeah, Tracy, so
People
what,
are holding their used cars. It's a lot less.
if I were looking at the numbers, I would say, instead of estimating 1.1 mil next year, I'd probably urge to estimate $1 billion.
Right.
For the last. No, the prices aren't going back yet.
What I'm probably leading to is that we received a budget projections for allocations for expenditures, but we haven't received budget projections on the revenue side. So that may be something that at a future meeting you could perhaps,
Well, we'll definitely do that. I do that on the expenditures as well. I try to look at 3 to 5 year averages. What have we been doing?
Right.
And
no, I'm sure. I'm just thinking that perhaps we ought to have it on the revenue side as well, just to look at those projections.
But if you look at it, it's running at 88,000 a month.
Right,
If you take 2 months, that
That's right there.
175,000 is eaten up.
right.
It's right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right on what the budget is.
I do that work a lot of times too. I'll
Yeah.
divide it out by the months we've had and then add those to it and see where we're at.
So,
In the end of the year is when a lot of people purchase.
well, it goes by birth date, right? So,
It goes by, well, yeah, but you,
No, not when you
not
purchase
with
the
the
new
new
one.
ones.
No,
With
no,
the new
no,
one
no.
you pay when you register the
But
first
so-
time.
right,
So, yeah, there's things to think about.
Yeah.
The lack of new cars, which there was some of that last year too, so we should be trending that, but interest rates may slow down car purchases, some of those things. but-
Yeah.
did we increase it from last year, do you remember?
Not a lot.
I like $5 a car.
Is that year-to-date budget column meant to be 10/12 of the budgeted number?
So the budget column is, the year-to-date budget column is the budgeted amount for the revenue.
For the whole year? Or
Yes.
10/12
Yes,
of
for
it?
the whole year.
Whole year.
So it's not really year-to-date.
No, it's not.
Right, should just say budget.
But
So year-to-date actuals should not be expected to be
Correct.
year-to-date budget.
Right.
Right.
So that 175K, I think,
Puts us right on.
yeah,
puts us go back.
Yeah.
Because 88 times 2 is
That's
176.
176. Yeah,
This is your basic canned report.
yeah,
So it comes with headings like that.
exactly. You can't change headings on.
Well, we might be able
It's
to, but
crazy.
then we're making a custom report.
You might-
I think we can.
you have to pay for custom reports. You have to pay for custom reports.
It's expensive.
It is.
I am
Yes, it is.
just starting to figure out how they work.
Okay,
Some
customized
of these things, so.
Yeah,
Never had a
exactly.
lesson.
We're not paying you
Trying to work on
$200
it.
an hour.
Right.
So,
Just customize it myself.
there you go.
Because it should by right say annual budget.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we actually budget for interest and penalties on taxes.
Of course.
So the fact that we're under is a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah, if we collect too much, it hurts the budget, but.
Means we're not getting that tax revenue, doesn't it?
I mean, we're getting it, yeah. Well, if the interest
penalty,
goes down,
but we're
we're
not
getting the
getting
tax revenue and not the interest and penalty.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the bottom line here? Are we,
Well, we're gonna be ahead, right?
Yeah.
When the rooms and meals
And
tax
then the
comes in.
sales tax and stuff comes in and.
At Lakeview, page 6. The, CWSRF. Is that reflecting a delinquency?
Page 6 of the revenues?
Yeah.
No, so
Just a
we didn't,
monthly allocation issue.
so. Interesting.
Mm,
That is likely, so I'd have to look at that just to make sure. So we do have, a grant that has come from the state that we're actually using to write down the debt service. And
Right.
so we have an amortization schedule for that, and they make, their fiscal year is different, so they make a couple payments. So I think there might be one that's still due, so I'll look into
Okay.
that for you.
I'm not looking for a long explanation. But I noticed that our year to date. At the total, it's like 1,000,005, but the budget is 17 million. See that 12 million line there for proceeds from long-term notes. Are those long-term notes, does that mean like the loans that we have? And we transfer money from one place to another?
Right, so basically, it's a wash when you have your expense on the one side for the special warrant article that we had a town meeting for the different loans. And then we have to balance it on the other side, but that we don't have it yet is okay, because we haven't spent it yet. It's. That's not going to be an issue, just is the way we just have to, in the books, we have to have it on both sides. Since we're supposed to put the revenues, but we haven't taken the loans out yet, so we haven't got the proceeds.
That's the proceed is,
That's the proceeds from the loans.
The loans, the money coming in. for proceeds, yeah.
I get it, thank you.
We had
We
budgeted
haven't
getting
pulled
it
them
this year,
in
we're
yet.
not getting it this year, basically.
All right.
Well. Right. We're pulling it out in disbursements, not all at once.
Well, yeah,
anyways.
and Mascoma Bank has been great on that we
Yeah.
can take out a loan and they hold it, but we don't pay on it, we don't do anything until we actually pull money. So we have a few loans floating out there that have been signed, approved, everything, and we haven't taken a dollar yet, and they're not charging us any money yet. So as soon as we pull money, I signed a few forms tonight, we'll start pulling, then we'll start paying.
What is the UVPA listing contributions from
Okay.
some surrounding towns?
That is, so, the Upper Valley Prosecutorial Association, Hanover was taking care.
Oh,
of
this is the
most of it.
budget for the prosecutor that we'll be hosting for the next,
Yes, but we don't have to budget for it. We don't have to do anything with it. It just runs through our bookkeeping system.
right. How do they arrive at that? So is that meant to be a 100% reimbursement for the cost of our hosting the prosecutor? Is that the idea?
Well, we don't, the prosecutor's not on site.
No,
No, we will be.
we're just
No.
we're just cutting costs and taking.
Oh, okay.
Everything else is up to them. They're
They work out
determining
their own
expenses. They determine how much people get billed.
in our-
But he's a rotating position, so at some point we wind up hosting him, don't we?
Only the virtual process.
He doesn't work out of any town.
Right.
Right.
they've changed the way they used to do it. They did used to have somebody in, did used to have a prosecutor.
Yeah.
Now, it's done differently. It's a separate organization
Okay.
that the different towns take turns doing the books. Hanover's done it for a long time.
As I said, I don't want to take turns.
Well.
Hanover's done it for a long time.
We're
and said
turn
we're
number
done.
two.
So it's our turn to do it for a long time.
But it's nothing that is budgeted or.
No,
It's just money in, money out.
money in, money out. We will be one of those payees, so we'll pay money in too. So technically it'll cost us money, but just what our fee would normally be.
So a separate bank account.
But we did
Everything's
make
separate.
it clear that any administrative costs that we put forward will be reimbursed to the town through their fund.
Is this a real person or is
There is a real person.
Prosecutor,
it a real person?
Real person. Get a real cool job.
Good.
Land use.
Where's this page meant to go?
there's a hot seat here. Yes. This one's pretty simple, just like we've done the past few meetings. And highlighted the sections that I felt you really should pay attention to. As we go through the planning budget, there were 2 lines, the biggest of them being the planning board personnel. You can see a almost $6,000 increase in there. I think I talked to you guys once before that I made a little bit of a change in this department. I brought Rob's salary up last year, equal with Liam's, and moved in a way where Rob now is kind of head of that division, land use division, I guess is what we'll call it, development or whatever we want to call it. And Liam worked very closely with him. So we made a salary change there to make that a little bit more fair. And this continues on keeping that division within the department. I think it's been working well. I can let these guys talk if you have questions, but they work hand in hand anyway, and I think it's been working really good on a chain of command type issue. And then the meetings and hearings, I highlighted, we brought that down a little bit just to be a little bit closer to the actuals that we're spending. There is offsetting revenue with that as they come in and go out, but again, want it to be as close to what we're actually spending as possible.
Where is the master plan for next year showing
It's,
expenditures? for
it's
next
not
year?
at this time.
It is not, okay,
It is something that we'll be discussing.
yeah,
The master plan, they've just talked in the last week or so about putting in for 20,000. 25,000 to continue the next 5 chapters. So I think that's something we should talk about when we're talking about possibility of spending fund balance. But that would be
So that is, to extend the contract of the.
not
master
necessarily,
planner?
but to start the next 5 chapters. Whether
So that,
we'll probably have to RFP out again, not just extend the contract to go.
Okay, but it goes
But we
to
can have that
a
discussion.
subcontractor, if you will.
Yeah,
To help write the next 5 chapters.
we've worked with a woman from Heartland, Vermont.
Yes.
Randy Saxton is her name, and
Right.
she has a company called Place Sense. and She's been fantastic to work with.
Yeah.
And is familiar with her. She's, we're 98% with the one we've got. Hopefully the planning board's gonna adopt in the next month or so. So, we did have a good discussion. I think it was there the other day, talking about keeping going. We've got 5 chapters they've identified to do basically the next set of chapters. We've already done 5, so it's 5 more. And, hopefully you'll support that and the town will support it at town meeting.
so are we talking about the document that I read over the weekend
Yes.
that they emailed around?
Yeah.
So that's not done yet?
It's almost ready for approval. We did
Right.
some,
It's
Work
only
last night.
Draft, there may be a couple little wording changes, and then the planning board has to hear it in a public hearing and actually
But
adopt.
that only represents what percentage of the total master plan?
well, it's 5 chapters and what we've got ready to go.
It's the
and they wanna do
we
5
have to
more.
have,
Right,
and
so it
then-
represents half
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
master plan, yes.
Okay,
And
I
the next,
understand.
the next 5 aren't as intensive as
Yes.
the first 5. Right.
I understand.
Yeah, those 5 are the ones we really have to
You have to have
by
big
state law.
grants.
And then we decided to add recreation and then historic and a few other chapters that we. were-
Energy.
Energy.
Got it. Okay,
It's a minor point, but since you're here and we're talking $20,000, shouldn't that be going through CIP?
We could talk about it, but
Yeah.
like I said, it hasn't been officially emailed to me as a proposal yet, but.
Okay,
sounds like it for the rules.
for the rules.
Thanks for that background.
So. Moving on to zoning, those 3 are pretty simple. They were really just. Moving to be more in tune with what actuals are being spent. I do like to highlight to you guys that we're looking at all of these lines and we're trying to get things as close as possible, not just carrying what we had last year forward.
Chairman Dean is here from the zoning board and he can attest, the meeting and hearing records is largely the recording secretary expense. Zoning board has actually been fairly busy this year and we've been really happy with, it's Whitney Banker is our recording secretary. And we had, I think it was a first in my time here, where she presented the draft minutes and there were no changes. Do you remember that? That was like, we were all like, because normally the zoning board goes over the minutes with a fine tooth comb, which is their prerogative and it's very important to have them accurate, and reflecting what the meeting said. But for, 15-page document that no changes, we were very impressed and I was,
It's also good to have Whitney doing both, all the land use.
yeah. Yeah, she does planning, zoning and master planning task force. So she does a lot of minutes for us and
She does conservation.
she does conservation. She's fantastic.
So,
She's also an alternate member now on the planning board, so she's there if we need her. She lives right next door. And she's a very nice person and we couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier. I do everything I can to make sure she's happy because she's taking such a great job.
Okay.
And then building inspection, we put these together, Liam's here and Rob, if you guys have any questions, but law books and references we brought down. Liam purchased a lot of books this year, so we're not thinking that we're gonna need as many next year. And then the professional development's up, to make sure that Liam can take the classes that he needs in the building inspector area. We are putting an emphasis on training. You'll see that throughout the budget. We raised some and lowered some based on expectations, and then COVID's also changed the training world. So some departments now have all the training they want online for free or very low cost, and others, seems like the ones we want to take, they figured out how to charge for those. So,
Is the short-term rental gonna add some expenses to that?
it shouldn't add any expenses to that. And we'll have to see when it actually gets pushed through and done. It's gonna have
That's
to
what
go
I
to
mean. It's
town
gonna be
meeting,
next
so
year.
I don't know that it'll be done for this year.
Okay.
It's pretty long, but if not, I don't know that it would add expense at this time, but it's gonna add a workload
Right, well, that's
for
what I
that
mean.
department.
Yeah,
The only expense would be if we had to hire someone to help, which we don't
Short term.
plan on doing. We purposely wrote that. We wrote it in a way where we have the option of inspection,
okay.
giving it in a way where we don't just overwhelm ourselves with work. And that's really all we had for land use, unless you guys have any questions. I think things have been going well. I'm just, update you. Like I said, we've made some change. I've worked with Rob pretty hard, and we're starting to get outside of the confidential and talk to bankers and developers and different people, really pushing the development side of land use, and then also working, working with and so it's been good. We've been getting a lot of really good feedback from people. And been doing that.
Did you want to mention at all software? Because we've been looking at software. I don't know if you're ready
We'll
for that.
continue to look at it. I talked to you guys last time. It's actually in the admin line, and we may need to move some into this budget, but we're looking at permitting, planning and development, permitting and building inspection software. Trying to look at what the cost of that'll be. I think I told you last time, the website actually is a lot cheaper than we thought. Planning software is a little more expensive than we thought, but I still think we're gonna be somewhere total in that $15,000 to $20,000 range, depending on which software we decide to go with. But I do think it's gonna be beneficial if you wanna hear from these guys, and they're the ones that have been sitting through the demos on how it'll change their job, but
So that's the software where people could do permits online.
they can do
Yeah.
permits online, we can do
Yes.
inspections online, and things will happen
Inspections
a lot
online.
faster. Yeah,
Scheduling.
when he's
Oh,
doing when he's doing a building inspection, some of these softwares, he can actually do it and push submit, and you get your certificate of occupancy or whatever on the spot right then. Instead of coming back to the office and filling out paperwork,
Yeah, one of the
depending on
components,
how we use it and which one we get.
one of the components that we're looking at would be also the ability to take payment online from residents and contractors for their building permits and for their planning and zoning. Which
So as you
I-
understand the proposal that was just mentioned for part-time rentals, will that incorporate into that software fairly smoothly?
I think so, absolutely. I think there's,
I mean, that's important because
Yeah.
I don't want to say what the possibilities are of that passing, but it is something
Yeah.
that's being considered.
it's very robust software. We went through a demo this morning. One of the ones we've looked at 3 so far that we sort of narrowed down to.
Okay.
And the one that we were looking at today is highly customizable. I mean, we can do business permits, gathering permits, all the different types of permits that any town. And it's kind of neat to see because they're demoing, with all of their customers in the sort of demo that they can show you all the different stuff other towns are doing, other cities, big and small. So it's very robust. So we think that sky's the limit, really. We could do lots of different stuff with it. And I think
So there's a possibility that a residential owner, for example, could make a declaration as to the condition of his property, which might be a part of this suggested proposal. And he could do that online.
yeah, like an affidavit or something like that.
Yes, something like that.
We can, Liam's excited about the submission of building plans and designs that he
Yes.
can mark up and send notes back and
Okay.
forth. We were just seeing too, we were talking this morning, is the expectation of the younger generation especially, they want to be able to do this stuff electronically. And for us to say, here's a piece of paper, fill it out, and bring it
Like-
back when you're done.
I got a great example. Yesterday, I was in Claremont doing some work on my rentals, and I needed a building inspection, and they came out and well, I can't technically pass you, you need to do this, this, and this. But because they have the online software, I was able to make those 3 repairs, take pictures of them. I went home and 10 o'clock last night, I uploaded them into the software, and we're good to go. And they didn't have to come back out and do a re-inspection, any of that. It's a lot more seamless. You can do the same thing, you get home from work late at night, the office is closed, you can sign up for your mechanical permit or plumbing permit or whatever and pay your payment and print your permit and
Who customizes it, Rob?
So, we have the ability, there's an editing tool, we can create our own forms in there. But, part of the expense of the software at the front end is anything that we've got, we literally hand them all of our permits. And they essentially digitize them and turn them into electronic.
So for the start, they
Yep.
preserve what you have and then you can make your
Yep.
changes from there.
And I mean, there's obviously hundreds of templates that they've already got preloaded from other communities. If you wanted to steal somebody else's permit and just change the names on it, you can do that too, which is kind of neat. It's available.
And do they train you to do that?
Yeah,
as part of
training
the
is part of
deal?
the initial rollout. Yep.
I think it'll be good software as we narrow that cost down. We'll bring that back, and if we need to run through CIP, we may have one more meeting. Probably just wait a little bit later in the season and we can run everything through at one time.
Thank you, guys.
No,
Thank you.
Cemetery's coming, do you know?
She's
The dog's on there.
Yep. She's on Teams.
Bridget's online. Didn't notice, so we'll go ahead and go through cemeteries if you guys are okay with that. I only highlighted 2 lines. I highlighted the salary line. They've asked, the trustees have asked that go up $300 this year. Not a lot of money. Percentage wise, it's more than what the other employees are looking at, but there's a few other places as we go through some other departments that's happening. So just want to point that out so you guys are aware of that and can make your decision. And then the special projects line, I can let Bridget talk to this, but I believe we're working on a sign project from last year. So we're going to be spending that $2,500, and then they put another $2,500 to continue that project, fixing some signs in the next year.
Bridget? Are you having a contractor do that sign repair work, or are we doing it in-house with our own staff?
We are talking to Joe Tatro of Fastlane Graphics because he has done it in the past, I was told, so he has the imaging and everything already kind of in his system. I have a phone call with him tomorrow, so I can get a better idea of a quote from him. And one item that did come up that it's a little cold now, talking with Chris Rollins, who does our surveying. We finished that project that I had encumbered money from last year for this year. And there's another section that needs pins in the in Countryside that was, for whatever reason, never pinned out. So I kind of spoke with him, and I'm waiting to see what that might cost, and I may put some of that money aside as well, just so that we can kind of have that finished and be done with that section, hopefully for years to come. So
How many signs do you expect to get refurbished with this $2,500, or approximately that much?
So I'm really not sure until I get a quote from him, just because of the cost of supplies. Initially, we talked about fixing signs, and then it turned into redoing signs and just starting one by one. My priority and our priority is the Lock Haven and Town cemeteries. They are right next to each other on Lock Haven Road. I have a real issue with the signage and how it does not match at all, and I know that's some of my own OCD issues, but I just think that they should look the same as all the rest of them. It's a slightly bigger project because it's taking 2 and making 1, and I don't know if you know what on Klug Road, we have Countryside Cemetery. It's kind of got 2 posts. It's a bigger one, so I'm looking at something more like that size and design for Lock Haven and Town, so that the 2 can be combined and put on one. Now, the extra bonus on this is, how do we make these last? How do we clean them easily? The cemetery trustees have had conversations around, as we get these redone, using an epoxy to seal them, so that we could then potentially pressure wash them or just easily clean them going forward. That's still on the discussion table of the proper epoxy and if we were utilizing that, but that's kind of the plan. So, and the thought process.
So right now, you're looking at Lock Haven and Town ceremony. Cemetery is what you're focusing on this year.
That would be the first sign, but I really don't know if I can get Joe to do it under this calendar year or budget year, I should say. I'm kind of hoping I can, and that it won't be over what I have remaining. I hope not, but we'll see. But we'll need the posts as well and everything, so I'm sure that will be taken into account as a total cost. And then next year, again, just seeing how much each one's going to cost us will hopefully give me an idea of how many we can get done. We have 17 cemeteries with signs. Even though there are 18 listed, I do not believe Whittemore has a sign because that's a long hike up in the woods to find it. So all in all, I don't know that we'd be, countryside's not a priority since that is relatively new, but it would be, our thought process is so many a year to work through them. And we'll go with which ones are in the worst shape first.
I'm just thinking it'd be nice to have an estimate for a repair of one of the normal signs.
Yep.
Simply because I could see suggesting that we put enough in the budget to do, say, 4 or 5 of the worst ones next year. I would guess that Joe would be happy to take that work if you could give him the money. And I'm saying this because to my eye, a number of these signs are decrepit. I think Lock Haven is probably about the worst of them, but the others are not far behind. And if we are doing 1 or 2 a year, by the time we get to some of those, you know, 5th or 6th year out, they're going to be in pretty rough shape.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, my thought is see how many I can get done within budget, and hopefully it's a majority. Like I said, I'm combining those 2, and that large one's probably going to be the biggest cost, and the rest of them are pretty much a standard size. So I think once he can give me a cost on one, that should hopefully help me plan for all the rest of them.
We did the public works sign at the bottom of the hill here a couple of years ago, and I think that one was about $400, just under $400. And that was a rebuild of an existing one, so I think that one's a little bigger than the cemetery ones, but some of the cemetery ones are pretty small, so.
Same guy.
Yeah, Joe Taylor.
Yeah, my thing is I'd like them to all look as uniform as possible and match
Pattern
our
language.
town sides.
You want a consistent pattern language.
Yeah, you know, that might be me, but you know.
Oh, that's good.
I
Well, the
accept
town's
it.
rebranding, so we gotta be careful.
Well, I did
Yeah,
check.
we
We're keeping-
decided to stay with the town seal on the
Okay.
cemeteries.
I did ask that question in case it changed our answers.
Are we becoming like Hanover Light, or
We're gonna be better.
what's our
than
brand gonna be?
that. We're working on it.
I don't know, but we'll have a toll booth at the entrance.
And I'm sure that Ed and Elisa probably don't want to hear me say this since I already handed in my budget. We might have some edits that I am hoping we can move some money around if we're not going to use as much in one area. It wouldn't be major, but we've talked about a little bit of the training for both myself and our trustees, and so I don't know. I'd rather put that in the right line. So if anything, it might just be a move, not necessarily a change in total.
We can talk about it.
Dead people complaining now that you need training?
Well, if it makes you all laugh, my cemetery, one of my trustees jokingly gifted me with a Ouija board at our last meeting so that I can ask them questions. So I'll let you know if I ever get responses. Probably won't use it though.
I suggest you bump that up a brand, sign work.
I like the concept of picking a period of time in which all the signs will get the proper
Right.
reverberation so that it is done within a,
3
let us
years.
say, 4 to 5 year maximum
Yeah.
period of time.
mean, I don't want to get into the nitty gritty, but I guess what I'm saying is, as a budget member, I'd be happy to see more money spent on that. Because it's not a lot of money, but
It's an impact.
yeah, it's a very visible.
Exactly.
People driving around looking for a place to rent, they see an old decrepit cemetery sign. I don't. He doesn't say a lot, but.
Yeah.
Doesn't make me feel great.
No, I'm
Yeah.
a big proponent of that. I push all my departments to do the stuff that's needed.
You have to, because people
Yeah,
determine everything else you're doing based on that
What they see.
Right.
crappy sign. They go, well, if they do crappy there, they probably do crappy.
Yeah.
It's-
No, we'll definitely look at that as we move forward and look at the bottom line, $1,000 at the punch. So
Yeah.
Do you remember the sign
I
that
think it's
was,
also important to get the bid back and see.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure we know.
Yeah.
there used
And
to be,
my-
oh,
Sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
I mean, I'm trying to also create a maintenance schedule because I don't know when a lot of these things happened and I don't know if that was necessarily tracked at different time points with just staff changeover. So I'm trying to make sure I track these things going forward so that we can, like you said, you know, over the next 3-4 years, replace them and know when each one was replaced for the future.
Thank you, ma'am.
No problem.
Anybody remember, there used to be a sign on, not cemetery related. On the side of 4A, if you drove towards Enfield Center on the right-hand side, right before Shaker Hill. There was like a sign on the right.
Yeah.
What was that? It's not there anymore.
that
It,
was-
it's,
The
I want to
Goodwin
say
tract,
Laramie, it's the,
is that the Goodwin land or?
the wildlife management area,
Yeah.
or it's not one of those state,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think somebody complained because it was leaning, so they removed it,
Okay,
rather than fix it.
yes. Does it look thin? For
I
sure.
think it's a wildlife management area.
Okay.
Exactly, yeah, and that was access to it, but then they built the one at Shaker Village, the one that goes across the field.
Oh,
And
there was an,
I think some of those signs are against the back of the field there.
okay.
There's a kiosk back there at the back of that field.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't even realize there was an access point right there.
You have to get
I
access,
didn't know either,
to find the access.
Well,
and I lived a few doors down.
yeah, when I first started here, they just logged it, and it was logging. Right. It's been consumed.
Go back to it and see if I can take.
All right,
Meeting with you.
Public Works.
Yes.
What about
Works.
South Road? When are you gonna get?
South Road?
So if you
See
want, I
what's
can
happened
go,
up there?
I can just keep going through these and any
Okay.
questions for today you can answer, but, contracted services, we just wanted to highlight that went down a lot. It's moved around. We don't hire a janitor anymore. We've hired a full-time person, so that's why that's been.
And misspelling maintenance on that explanation line.
Yeah,
That's
sure
all right.
is.
Know how you
What
spell
happened
it?
to spell check?
I'm negotiating, man.
The next three you're gonna see
Yeah.
reappearing as we go through this is utility. I mean, everything's going up, so I highlighted them every time to bring them to your attention, but we got our crystal ball out and we're guessing pretty good what we're actually gonna use, but I think I've done math a bunch of different ways, and I'm sure Jim did when he put this together, and I think it's a pretty decent number. Hopefully, things don't change a lot on us.
What do we pay a gallon for oil?
Oil right now, I think we're at 480.
Really?
I got 4.99.
Yeah.
What do we pay for propane, just a guess?
At, yes, we are, I think it was 268 last time we bought.
Yes.
Do we generally bid those each year? We do
We
not.
haven't bid them for a number of years.
And is there a rationale for not bidding them?
We have a favorable rack plus price on
Right.
pretty much everything. What had happened was we had bid it every year and we don't own our own, particularly propane infrastructure. So there was a couple of my water and sewer stations that had 4 propane tanks that were full of propane. And the loss, you know, selling those back to the company
Yeah.
was way more than what you would have saved through the bid project. So we got a favorable rack project price, and that's what we've been using. But, you know, again, at some point, we should redo that and see if we could get at least a better rack price, if
The
anything else.
normal residential methodology for changing propane companies is that one company buys the equipment from the previous. And that works.
I recently actually heard that that's hit or miss. That's if the companies get along.
Right, yeah.
If
Well,
the
it
companies
is, but
don't
if
get
you're-
along.
Yeah, and if you're dealing with a company that doesn't get along, well, you don't want to deal with that company necessarily anyways, but.
Right.
I can tell you from recent experience, it's still there.
Well, I belong to a group and what they do when they change propane is, the new company brings their tank full and the old company comes and gets theirs and they pay you for what's in it.
Right, I'm referring to buried tanks.
Oh, there,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
One
But
company will
a
take
few- Yeah,
over
when it's buried,
ownership of the
Right.
buried
They
tank.
generally will.
And I can tell you that from a recent experience, that
and
works
most
fine.
times the owner owns the buried tank.
Yeah, I
Sometimes.
think if we were serious about doing that, particularly with propane, that we would need to, I mean, we own some of the in-ground tanks. But then we have a bunch of above-ground tanks that we don't own. And so if we wanted to do that, we should, you know, put a project together and get that set up so we own everything and then you can just go and, you know, bid out
Get competitive pricing.
the pricing, yes.
Jim,
Yeah.
maybe you could give us a sense of how many tanks you're talking about?
I think we have 10 propane and I think there's 6 heating oil tanks currently.
And propane wise, we're talking 500s.
Well, with, there's 2 1000s out here.
Yeah.
I think there's a 500 at the community building. There's 1000 at the Shaker Village pump station. And then I think there's 250s at the smaller well houses.
Not for this year, obviously, but I think for a future year, at least as far as those tanks are concerned, I think it's worth investigating costs of purchasing those tanks and having them as part of our asset volume. So that we have no reluctance whatsoever to hit the open market.
Mhm.
Especially oil being as volatile as it is. Propane is too, but oil
Yeah.
particularly sensitive in our part of the world.
Mhm.
I think we ought to be able to own the tanks and deal with a bidding process.
We've been picking them up one by one. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, as we did new sewer stations and sort of things, we did.
Maybe
put
we're
in-
just doing it all at once and saying,
Yeah.
here it is, bite the bullet,
Right,
own the
exactly.
tanks.
Yep.
press forward.
Yep.
And then
Get some
go for
prices.
competitive pricing.
We did that. We did talk this year about bidding, but by the time we were in that discussion, it was a little late in the season. so
Yeah, not this year, obviously.
we did
Yeah,
talk
but
about
I'd say
doing it next
In
year.
planning for the next year,
Mhm.
it might make sense to consider that as a possibility.
Yeah.
Oil's only gonna get worse.
When do you usually plan to put it out for a bid, like what time of year?
May, June.
It descends. I would say probably that May, June
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
frame.
Yeah.
It really really depends.
School district
This year
puts
they
theirs
really
out in
give you a
June.
price.
Right.
And that's every year.
Very traditional.
Cause I'm thinking, I don't use what the town uses. I'm paying $4.10 a gallon.
410, yeah.
That's a huge savings over what your price is.
Yeah, yeah,
And my propane is $2.24.
yeah,
Yeah, I was just.
My
I think our
propane is
2.17.
230.
230, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's no reason the residential
Now, see,
propane should be less than commercial.
See, a year ago, our propane was at 110.
Right.
Right,
So, you
Right.
know, I mean, we kind of follow the market and, you know, I think you win some years, you lose some years.
But you would have a lot more options if we could afford to buy the tanks.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yes,
if we own the
that's
tank,
right.
then you
And,
can-
I mean, literally, it took me 2 years to get the tanks removed from the sites. And it was just, it was a huge headache. And so,
It's also a liability though, too. And, you know, after so many years, if something goes
Oh,
wrong, it's
exactly,
all
yeah.
on us.
Yeah.
It's not on the company that's delivering.
mhm,
You mean if the tanks are
Yeah, the tanks do,
Have useful-
propane tanks do have a, you know.
They have a
useful
life and they're,
Yeah.
it's not cheap,
Mm.
so.
So you're saying we own a few of the tanks?
Yes, yep. The newer installs we've purchased, yeah,
And the
because
ones
they're
that,
in the ground.
the ones that we don't own, is there a problem putting, I guess like if you buy from Irving and they don't own those tanks, they won't put their gas?
No, they bring their tank, they
Yeah.
push this one over, this might be full of fuel, and then they set a new one, so. And then, you know, with reduced crews and that kind of thing, it's, you know,
That's-
you're last on the list for them to come and waste time taking the tank away.
And that was the selling the fuel back that,
Yes.
And you take it back
Yeah.
on that, yes.
Well, and not to say we're not gonna do that, because I do think we need to RFP and move forward, but that can bite the town too. We got bit pretty hard in Claremont when we didn't use as much fuel as we said we were gonna use, and they made us buy it anyway.
Sure.
Mm,
And
mm.
it cost us a lot of money for fuel that we didn't use.
Right.
So, I
People are
mean, the
using.
commercial side, they do it a
Dead
little
River.
bit different than residential, and I know you can do it on your residential side too, but to get those lower prices, you have to usually guarantee a certain amount.
There are ways around that too.
Yeah, we never,
Town can be a reseller. You can actually order that propane to be delivered to a different location and get paid for it.
We can look at it. You
There-
usually
there-
hear about it after the fact.
Yeah.
You didn't use enough, here's your bill.
Yeah.
Well, Irving does that in their standard contract. You're supposed to use a certain
Yeah.
percentage. I've never had a problem with not using all of it, but
Yeah.
I'd say they'd like you to probably use 90%.
I was gonna
And,
say Irving's the one we got bit by in
Yeah.
Claremont. It
Yeah.
cost us thousands of dollars extra.
wow.
right,
so what else do we need to cover in this?
Well, we have many pages. DPW maintenance, facility maintenance, that's the kind of the same as the other one, that one went up. Our facility maintenance is actually facility. We have a focus on facilities, and now that we have a facility person, we're spending more money. I'm gonna throw reservoirs and dams to Jim, but
Yes, we pay the dam tax, literally and figuratively. The town currently operates two dams. One is at the Harrisbrook Reservoir in Canaan, which was the old town reservoir that used to run the water system. And then the other one is at the George Pond. And so the state taxes us for those annually. And then we have to do minor maintenance to those. And that's what covers those.
Is there a short explanation for why they tax us?
Yeah, well, it's more of a fee than a tax because New Hampshire doesn't want to have taxes. They like their fees. So this basically covers them coming, I think they come every 3 years and inspect the dams and give you a laundry list of, maintenance projects and studies and things that they'd like to have you do on these things.
Gotcha.
And I believe the cost goes up if the quality of your dam is low. 'Cause that's
Yeah.
what we discussed last year, why the number increased.
Yeah, and then, they re-rated the George Pond Dam from a low hazard to a high hazard. And that made the fee go up substantially.
Well, not really a tax. It's like an inspection fee essentially. That's what it is.
Well, yeah,
What actual function does the Harrisbrook Dam serve? Could we?
it's a natural area.
Breach that?
Well, we were
dam?
looking at doing that, and then the Conservation Commission stepped up and said, no, we gotta make it. And so they built a parking area and a trail and it's all around, and it's quite beautiful up there. I will
But
say.
that's all in
It's in Canaan,
Canaan, yeah.
so we also pay the
So the
tax.
our conservation committee paid to build a parking lot?
Yep.
Interesting.
And, but yeah, it's, there's loons that nest up there and it's a very beautiful spot.
Where's this dam located?
This is in, up off of Maple Street in Canaan.
Up by where the pump house is. The
Right,
pump-
so It's in
See it on
Maple
the
Street
map
and
right
Canaan, but we're paying,
We pay property.
Well,
tax on
that's
it.
where our town well is.
Yeah,
One
but that's-
of our wells.
It's almost nothing. What we pay in property tax to the town of Canaan isn't,
Yeah, it's not much at all.
it's nothing, almost nothing.
okay,
I think $2,200 for that natural resource is chump change. I
I
think,
haven't been up there. So.
I think
It is beautiful up there.
it's a pull.
It's amazing that it drew loons there.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I have to go check it out.
So if we move down to highway administration, the first line there. We're asking that we increase what we given you there by $11,200. We did decide, we actually hired someone this year, but we hired him last year when we were shorthanded, a seasonal person. And we decided to hire him back this year, even though we were at full staff. To really have that extra plow driver and be able to give our drivers some time off during the winter, so they're not burning themselves out. And I can let Jim talk a little bit to the program that we've put in place with Pike, and it's a really good deal for the town, so.
Yeah, the fellow that we have, he's a kid that was in the military and, did combat engineering. So he had a lot of experience with equipment and so forth. He came to us last year. He works for Pike in the summertime. He makes good money, lots of overtime. And then Pike has adopted this strategy to try to retain workers, whereby obviously they don't pave in the wintertime, but they are now paying the benefits on their employees if they promise to come back the next year. So this fellow took advantage of that. 2 years ago, he did carpentry, but didn't get, a steady number of hours or anything. And so he came to work with us last winter. He picked up a commercial driver's license while he was here, so that was a good benefit for him. And he plowed the south of the river downtown route and did a great job for us. And he called me up, a month or two ago and said, hey, do you want to come back? And I said, well, we've got it in the budget for you. We'd love to have you, because it seems like if we lose people, we lose them this time of year, and we lost a guy last week, so we're no longer full staffed. But yeah, this guy is great, and then, about the time the winter's running down, Pike's looking to put him back on, so that's around the first of April, so.
He's a winter intern. He's not.
And the pay for him is included.
That's the intern is separate from the plow guy.
Oh, okay.
And it is not budgeted.
Yeah, the summer intern's not budgeted, but
Yeah.
it's an idea that we had to share
Yeah.
that between.
What is the 78,000 figure? I'm not seeing that.
So the requested column will go from 67,000 to 78 by adding the 11,200 for the seasonal position.
Okay, and the 11,200 represents this fellow you're describing?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so then skipping to the next line, the overtime, is that still necessary at that level? It seems to be fairly high as compared to 20 and 21.
I asked that same question. It was proposed at the 37. I actually ended up pulling it down to 7,000, but that's one of those that's really a crapshoot based on winter.
Mhm.
We've had mild winters the last 2 years. If we have some tremendous snowstorms, we're gonna burn through that overtime pretty quickly. And so I think having a good amount in there, but we also wanna not over budget that. So trying to find that balance is hard.
Does it depend on the time of day that the storm comes?
Exactly. And the day of the week. Makes a big
Holiday.
difference. Although the other thing too, we talked about a little bit was how the overtime is being reported. Because I thought that the amount that was in there seemed low, even with last winter being mild. I thought there should be more hours in there.
Yeah, that year, 2021 might have been.
Well, yeah, and it's a calendar year too, which is the other issue.
Where there was a lot of them that ended with
So it's-
freezing rain.
It kind of splits.
Yeah, that's the worst, because you're just putting material out for hours and
So
hours.
aside from what's gonna hit us tomorrow and a month, for the next month, the 3-year average just seems dramatically lower than 30,000 to me. We're looking at 21, 9,300 and 11,000 boosted by 1 month's worth of work. So maybe that bumps up another 20% and becomes 13,500 or something. Still dramatically lower than 30,000.
I agree with you, but I think there's a reporting thing that's going on here because.
Okay.
You know, if I have 2 major storms or 3 major storms, that's more than 10,000 in overtime. I mean, it just is.
Each.
And so.
Yeah.
Together,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
10,000 per storm or 10,000?
for 2 or 3, it's about 2 to 4,000 in overtime per storm usually. So, you know, we had a lot more than 3 events last year. So again, and maybe you guys can figure out, you know, what's happening here. If I had to guess, I would just say that this is just picking up the 0.5 of the 1.5 overtime. So,
I don't know how much it affects us, but we had a policy change too, that was very unfair to the employees. We've been talking about it, we're gonna go to the select board, but last year they got called in and had to plow all day on Christmas. And because of the policy change of the last town manager, they got no overtime for working Christmas.
No overtime
Because
at all?
What, no overtime for working
We
Christmas?
recognize the holiday on the.
Yeah,
day
holidays are
before
not
that.
counted as time worked for the
So-
policy now, so.
And that was a decision of the previous town manager?
Yeah, I got pushed.
Unilaterally, that was not a.
No, it went through the select board, but I don't know that it was fully up there. To me, it's not right. I told them we're gonna do it right. We're working on the policy now. I don't know what that impact will have, but that would have been another $3,000 or $4,000 probably last
Yeah.
year for time.
So, I
Should have got
or
time.
Christmas.
Plus they had a water main break that say.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
they-
Oh,
That was
maybe
the
it
worst
was
of the worst.
It was a water main
It
break
was a water.
where they had 10 guys.
After
down
the
there.
snowstorm.
After the snowstorm, they had 10 guys down at Georgia Avenue.
So, I mean, that'll be a little bit of it too, but I would also caution that we not into making numbers bigger than they need to be, but this is one that we probably should
Fair
have a
enough.
little bigger.
Sure, fair enough.
I have an idea. So if it's a reporting issue, the dollars are living somewhere, right?
Right.
They're just on the wrong one. So would there be any objection if so you want to add 11,000 for the seasonal guy, right? If you just keep the current numbers sum the same, I don't care where the numbers go. You know what I'm saying?
Total.
I could get behind that because having the extra season, the guy it helps on the overtime.
So like essentially add the 11,000 to your part-time and remove the 11,000 from the overtime. The sum is the same. The overtime is more in line with the past. If there's a misreporting somewhere, the numbers will just right pocket, left pocket.
Okay,
We'll
we
see
can
it
look at
next
that.
year when we do the budgeting, we'll see the more accurate reporting.
So. Any
We can do
objection?
that, and this may be another one to look at that longer, like 5 or 6 year average. And try to figure out where we're at. We're just a couple years, maybe painting a picture that we don't want to be in. But a
Maybe,
longer
but I'd
term-
like the guys paid corrected before this Christmas.
For Thanksgiving, because it looks like it's gonna snow like the day.
And before this Thanksgiving.
No, I canceled that one.
You did? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's what I told the guys. I don't think the personnel policy will be changed in time. But I will make the exception and make sure that they're treated fairly. And I already told them that. Okay. That authority.
Yes, you have a contract now, so.
I'm sure that lifts their spirits with the holidays coming up.
Yeah, we need to treat people right. That's the big thing. Oh, where were we at?
We're gonna talk about paper. next.
We don't do any survey and engineering apparently.
Is that,
Is that why that, but we.
No, we tend to get billed in December for that. That's what it is.
For work done throughout the year.
Oak Hill Road, Bog Road, yes, yeah.
Oh, so we have outstanding.
Oh, yeah, yeah, no,
invoices
there's,
now.
I had contacted the engineer and asked for an invoice. just because I wanted to head off this question, but yeah, that's typically what they do. I don't know if it's because they want to report that income in the next year or what it is, but always struggling to get invoices.
Are we gonna
Out of
see an
them.
invoice for $26,925? As was 21?
No, it shouldn't be that high. Again, a lot of that was, preparing some grants and, getting the Oak Hill Road design work done, permitting. And then we spent some time on the survey for the Bog Road Bridge to get started on some of these projects.
That was the big spend last year.
Yeah.
Don't have any on big spends this year.
No, well, a lot of those projects are ongoing. And then if we qualify for the Potato Road hazard mitigation money, the 26,000 that we spent, or the portion of it that was allocated to that project, we'll get back. And so or we can use it as part of our match.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, and maybe this is what Tracy's trying to ask, are we likely to see another $26,000 year-to-date actual, or we're gonna see something closer to 75?
It should be closer to 7,500, maybe over that a little bit, but not,
7502?
no, well, I don't know. That's why I wanted to have an invoice before this meeting,
You know, those numbers stand out, right?
Yeah.
And we keep hiring this recalcitrant engineer who never bills because he's really good.
She is really good, yes, and she's busy and having the same thing with most engineers that would
He
be.
doesn't want to get paid.
They don't want to pay for bookkeeping.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Tell her she can't pay it by December 31st, she has to write it.
she has to write it off, yeah.
Change their mind quick.
No, I think last year we'd get the bills around December 31st, yeah.
Okay.
So the next line, office supplies, a lot happened in there. You'll see the overage of 2006-15. We're continuing to look and work at that. We had some employee turnover, things were coded differently, so we're continuing to go through that. The 1,500 is up from last time, but again, that was some coding things that we found that there were items being coded to different lines that they didn't think they needed to be. So we tried to accurately reflect what that would be.
So you're saying we spent more on office supplies than was reflected in the years in the budget in the past?
A little bit, we recoded a few things, but some of that 2,600, I would say right now is still miscoded and we'll be coding that appropriately.
And some of that needs to go to some of the other departments in the building.
It may go down if we recode that.
Yeah. Right.
But then we budgeted a little higher because some of the things will be getting put into that line. So we talked about a little bit of that in the notes there. The postage one, I was talking to Elisa before this, it said $300 and I know we looked this up once before, but I can't remember why, so we're gonna look at that again. But, we think it may be something where something got coded in there to get the 388 that maybe doesn't need to be in there, so we'll look at that and see. Repairs and service contracts, it is what it is. The iWorks program itself is $1,200 a year, so.
That used to be listed under contracted services, but it's not really a contracted service, it's more of a service contract. So it got moved to this line, but everything's itemized.
And Jim, do you like the iWorks software?
We've been happy with it. Yeah.
And when Rob was talking to you, we're looking at, I shouldn't name companies, but we're looking at company for permitting software that works with our website. And then the iWorks program also has permitting software, so we're looking at that. We do have two companies that we already work with that provide this software. Contracted services, $46,000 is in there to continue the invasive species project.
Is that the contract, 46,000?
No, it's 40,000 in this year's budget, and then there's gonna be some more work in the next year's budget, and we're also looking at the management plan when it comes out of that, of how we're gonna actually manage the invasive species, so.
Now, under that contract, Does that include cutting as well as,
The one we have now is just inventory and planning.
inventory and planning only?
And part of that planning and the report we get back is a recommendation on how we manage it.
Okay, so it doesn't put any work on his department at this point in time?
No. And it probably won't. It's more than likely gonna be a contracted service that we bring in for invasive species management.
Townspeople volunteering, you supply the fuel and flamethrowers.
Yeah.
For the ones that need burnt, we will look into that. CIP meeting for a flamethrower.
Oh, you need more than
Yeah, really.
one. How are we gonna duel?
Gasoline, diesel fuel, same as what we talked
The
about.
diesel fuel increase looks low to me, based on what diesel's up to. Gasoline looks appropriate, but I'm wondering if your diesel is gonna,
I agree with it, because when we did this, it was coming down,
yeah.
and now it seems to be creeping back
Yeah.
up again, so.
So the projected 55 looks a little low to me, based on a year-to-date of 50.1. With 6 weeks still to go,
And only just getting cold.
Yeah, 6.
and you're about to start running the trucks for plowing.
Yeah.
The
that's what-
55 looks a little low to me in point of time, but I don't know.
Look at raising.
How many are diesel?
All of
All of
them,
them?
yeah, except a couple pickup trucks, right?
Yeah, we have, I think, 4 that are gas.
The pickup trucks.
Pickup, and we do have a couple of the F-450s are gas.
I agree with you, Tracy, 60 might sound.
That's the numbers that I
On a
would
nice
recommend,
day. Yeah, well, I think it's more than that. Yeah,
you know, but I think it could be bumped a little.
right.
It's gonna be 60 by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, so by next year, end of next year, it's probably gonna be 75.
So vehicle equipment repairs and maintenance, that's pretty simple. Parts are going up too. Equipment rental went down. The big part of that is that we bought a roadside mower, so we won't have to pay that anymore. Aggregate fill and material went down. You see that? That's because we crushed all the concrete out there, so we have piles of aggregate in our yard. So good use of recycled material.
I have a question.
Yep.
In the full report, pavement maintenance was 185 for budget for 2022. Requested for 2023 was 185. Year-to-date spent was $2,852.
Yep.
That was before we paid.
Okay.
Well, and what's funny is the engineer, they're not the only ones that can't get me an invoice, because we did that paving over a month ago and I still haven't seen an invoice for it.
So I saw one
Blacktop?
$6,000 for Blacktop.
Blacktop.
Blacktop, right? Yeah.
They're better.
Really?
Yep.
All right.
They used to be very prompt.
Yes, they did. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Either that or they're really flush.
Yeah, they don't need money.
Must be,
Maybe it's that. I think
They may be looking to get the
I
money.
think the CFO is
2023
sliding,
also.
sliding a little bit.
Well, right. I mean, I know they've lost 2 or 3 of their sort of ace guys to health.
There's been a turnover of ownership as well.
Yeah, and they struggled with, they really had 1.5 paving crews this year, because the second one, they really couldn't staff.
My
properly.
other thing that I'm sure we'll be talking about in the near future is possibly raising that number, but this year we also got the 22 of, what was it? 200 and something $1,000 from the state
Mhm.
to do road maintenance.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be doing a portion of the Maple Street next year, so
Mhm.
it's 122 of the 200.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
We'll be doing more paving than 185,000 next year, but we're asking for 185 to
Yeah.
continue our paving.
And we will get away from what is it called again?
Skim coating.
Skim coating,
No, greater shim,
greater shim.
Shim?
greater shim.
We'll stop doing that.
Is that the new name or is it a different process?
I'm gonna say yes while he's here.
Yes, well, yeah, yeah.
Cause I don't see the value of what you guys have done
I
on George
disagree with
Hill.
you. I disagree. We can debate it.
Here's the
I
thing, you can
disagree.
disagree, Jim, but I'm gonna tell you, the population of Enfield disagrees with you
Yeah. Yeah, that's-
vehemently.
Yeah.
And it's chronic. The
Yeah.
conversations, it just keeps popping up. It's not going away with time.
Mhm.
So I think we have to consider that if you wanna pass budgets.
Mm.
I'd rather,
Well, I mean,
Pay a
part
little
of,
bit
part
more
of it,
to do
Jane, though,
right.
is the availability of machine crews. They're getting very scarce and, you know, this year it took 3 weeks to do, or 2 weeks to do, you know, basically 3.5 days of paving. And that's because there's no trucks, there's no machine. So when we are faced with that, then we have to look at another alternative to address some of these issues. And so we can do greater shim in-house. We have a roller, we have the grader, and we have 3 or 4 trucks that we can haul from the plant. And so that's when we get into those kinds of, you know, places.
But
So
what I hear is they think it would have been better to do nothing. Just so
nothing.
you know.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, when we have to
Just so you know.
use, you know,
Yeah.
200 extra tons of salt to burn out the middle of where the wheel tracks are, and you know, that's where I would disagree.
Right.
So,
there were not a whole lot of wheel tracks on George Hill. There were cracks in the road, plenty of cracks in the road.
yeah.
But not really wheel tracks. And
We don't
after,
need to-
Well, if you put a
Individual.
2x4 on that lane, you would see the decline in that, and that's what again, you have to retreat to get that out, because the blade can't scrape it properly, so that's why we do it. Anyway,
It
We'll
may
be
be
working on
frustrating to
that.
tell us.
Yeah.
Highway plan.
It may be frustrating to have to explain this to us who are not likely to.
oh, no,
understand it,
I'm,
But I think it's worth it,
yeah, oh,
because
absolutely,
if we understand
Right. The reason.
why, we can answer people on your behalf and say,
yeah,
yeah, we think the skim coating sucks too, but it
yes,
has to be done, here's why.
exactly, and
It's
so.
not, it's not a choice.
I mean,
between
I could,
nothing.
you know, 2 seconds ago, could I just let that go? It would have been easier, but again, you know, I did take a lot of flack on George Hill Road. We did 4 or 5 other spots and we didn't take the flack. I will grant that day that they did do that, it was a little bit cold. We probably should have
Yes.
waited. But we just get to a time of the year when you can't wait any longer, you have to do it because it needs to get done, so. But anyway, I mean, if we do nothing, then, you know, we have Blackwater Road. And I don't know if you guys have driven that recently, but there's the do nothing, so.
You're gonna be in the process of bringing in a new highway superintendent,
Yes,
Yeah.
he starts
The
2
one
weeks.
and I don't wanna mention his name, that's unfair, but
Mhm.
does the new individual have a background in any degree of paving?
Yes,
Oh, I think so, yes. Yeah,
no, he's got,
I think he's Air
I
Force
don't want to
trained.
talk about him because that's unfair, but I'm just asking.
yeah, he was in the Air Force, he built runways and
Okay.
roads for them, and then he's been a highway superintendent
Perhaps.
for.
A training cycle might answer some of the public's questions.
Mhm.
Bringing the skill of the crew up a little bit in terms of some training might be beneficial.
Yes, yeah. Oh, definitely, yeah, no, I
So-
mean, there's a lot of things that can be done. I mean, again, you know, if we had, you know, a better, you know, like plan, I guess, I mean, you know, George Hill Road has taken a lot of attention. It's been ground up, it's been rebuilt, and it still, you know, is a problem. It's a hill, it's a cold hill. And
Well, I
and so
remember also you predicted that it was gonna get tough wear because of the amount of commercial traffic. over there.
That's another thing is that we're
And
seeing.
that was predicted. We
Yeah.
knew that was gonna happen.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And so, you know, we've tried some newer techniques and, you know, I wanted to be satisfied that they worked before we, you know, sort of launch into a new, you know, an overhaul of how we do things. You know, Jones Hill was one that we did quite a few years ago with a new treatment and it's held up beautifully. And so, you know, just it takes more money to do that. And so you really need to plan it better. And I think this new guy is gonna really help with that because he's, you know,
That may-
worked in a couple of
Then
towns.
the
that
approach
do
of
that.
training and, planning, but training the crews as well, bringing their skill level up a little bit
Yeah.
may be beneficial in answering some of the public's concerns.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, and I can tell you, he's been good at, and he's already been charged with putting together a long-term paving plan that includes preventative maintenance, not just rebuilding roads. And he'll be good at working with the crews on innovative techniques, ways to do things differently and looking at what new techniques are out there. And like Jim said, trying little places to see what works. And I think it's gonna be good as we move forward. I'm looking
When
forward
does he
to
start?
the 28th of November.
It's gonna snow
No,
on the
he's gonna stay away
27th.
from the dirt.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
He won't go near the dirt roads with pavement.
Yeah. Well, I will say I will stand behind our dirt roads wholeheartedly. Last spring, I think Enfield's roads were among the best in the Upper Valley. I didn't see any oil trucks on Facebook that were stuck in the mud. I didn't see people complaining.
True, but we still don't take advantage of, for example, at Shaker Boulevard, grading that road after all the tourists go home. We don't go there in mid-October when the road has 20% of the traffic
Yeah,
that it has at other times of the year, and yet we own a grader.
yeah. Well, I mean, the grader's out all the time. I mean, we're
I
doing
agree,
that.
but
and
you
so,
know, when
yeah,
we look at a Shaker Boulevard, for example, and some other areas in town are the same way, that as the population dissipates, we need to be there.
yeah.
Good speed bumps.
Because the traffic is
That
a
doesn't
fraction of
affect
what
it.
it would be at other times of the year, and we can run a grader down a road like Shaker Boulevard in 25% of the time than it would be at other times of the year.
Mhm.
Because there's not cars
There's
trying
no
to get
cars.
But
There's
they
no
didn't
traffic.
grade this year as much as they have in the
They did
past
not.
either.
No,
Basically, I remember once.
Yeah.
Do you remember more? than
I
that?
don't even remember the ones, I'm sorry.
There was.
Well,
once.
and I'll defend that one too,
Yeah.
is we've gone to, we're using the liquids and we have a vibratory roller. So that we don't need to grade as often as we once did.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I think I've driven around our roads and I'm pretty satisfied with their condition. And a lot of that is that they're graded properly, treated and compacted, you know, all in one thing. Takes a little bit longer, but then we don't have to do it 4 times.
And the only
there
thing
was-
I would add to that, not to interrupt, sorry,
Yep.
but walk down Shaker Boulevard or ride a bicycle on it.
Yeah.
Mm.
It may be worthy of road traffic at 27 to 30 miles an hour, but it's not worthy of foot traffic nor bicycle traffic.
And that's more a function of right of way than it is of road surface, if you ask me, because I don't even think we have 20 feet there of right of way.
Well, no, I mean, just
They're
right
riding on the boulevard though,
How does it
Sure.
affect?
right down the middle of the road.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
good.
and a
Well,
lot of
and
them.
that's because
We don't need to admit that.
we don't
I
own
don't wanna
enough
get cut in the
property there.
weeds.
to-
It's not fair to go into the weeds.
How does it affect foot traffic, Tracy?
It's a heavily foot traffic road
People drive there. park
and
on the
also
side
heavily
and walk
bicycled
And
road.
run it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people run the road, a lot of people walk the road, and a lot of people bicycle on the road.
But how does grading affect being able to walk on them?
Tremendous potholes. Potholes are unreal. It's Moon Crater out there right now.
I don't know.
I live on a
I
state.
don't mean to be harsh. I really don't.
What the hell?
That's unfair.
I'm sorry.
Shaker Hill's worse, yeah.
I'm sorry, but Shaker Hill in the spring, State Road is worse than any road in this town.
Not South Road.
It's in Canaan, South Road.
When it's smoothed out, people complain about the speed. I just soon have a few potholes.
Well, you know, I have
They don't. slow down.
more people that think that way than want those roads smooth because they want the speed mitigation. So, you know, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, and I don't mean to beat you up. I'm sorry. It's not the intention. It's just, I look at where the population is
Yes. Yeah.
and that being a gravel
And
road.
we do try not to grade between, you know, the 1st of June and the and, you know, Labor Day
Agreed.
on
Yeah.
Shaker Boulevard.
Agreed.
Because it's
But
impossible.
for that
to
reason,
move
that's why I
that.
throw October 15th out
Yeah,
there, for example.
Yeah, and most,
He's gonna put 200 pounds of salt at the end of my driveway 3 times a week on
Yes.
Shaky Hill Road,
That's right.
because the state will not fix it.
Yeah.
Because they do summer maintenance, and that doesn't need to be fixed in the summer.
yeah,
It only needs to be fixed in the winter.
Where's that?
That's been so.
Shaky Hill
a
Road,
lot of years.
right
Whole
down
thing.
my house,
Town all the way out to Nancy's place,
right?
Yeah.
up to that curve.
Take a
Because
left
it's
and go down
flat,
to
it's
Livingston
got
Lodge
no
Road. What's the matter?
So when, side question, when you top coat, right? The one thing, and you can just tell me if that's what's supposed to be. But I was surprised to see the tire tracks of the roller in the coating.
yep.
Is that expected or not?
It is because the roller that we have is a vibratory roller with a single drum. If you watch a paving crew, they have rollers that have double flat metal drums. And so that's really what's designed to roll pavement. And so, yeah, we end up with some tracks. Because of that. So it's still warm, it's pliable, and that thing weighs a lot, so it does imprint a little bit.
You get tires in the back. It's like-
Correct, exactly, yeah,
Instead of a roller.
exactly.
I'll end with this one. You and I have talked about this before. I believe this town needs a road sealing program
Yes,
following new pavement. We're gonna enter a season here next year where we're gonna spend over $225,000 in paving.
Mhm.
It'll be a big year for us, dollar wise. We need to think about very seriously sealing Maple Street and the other properties that we'll be doing. We've already lost some that we've done in recent years.
yeah.
And I think that needs to be an
agree with you.
ongoing program. I've seen it done successfully
Yeah.
at a number of towns, and it
Oh,
really
yeah,
does work.
yeah, it's been good,
When we talked to the new.
and he
highway
has done a lot of
superintendent,
that,
He's done a lot of that.
so,
He actually, I've seen it, he has a whole presentation of why preventative maintenance is important.
Exactly.
You think you're getting a lot of complaints now. Wait till someone with a bad road is watching us spend another 50,000 on a road we
Yeah.
just paved 2 or 3 years ago.
that's right. That is, the optics are hard
But
to,
he has a great presentation of why.
Boy, it
it's
pays for itself.
Yeah.
Once you've seen it, come back 2 or 3 years after that, and that road's still in good shape, you'll realize why it's still in good shape. So a road that was paved 6 years ago is so much that has been sealed. It's in such better shape than a road that's paved 2 or 3 years ago and never got sealed.
Like, well, even a year, like, I remember when George Hill got repaved, the next year it was cracked.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it,
Well,
and it did just
reflective-
get bigger and bigger and bigger.
It's an
Reflective
expense, it
cracking
costs
happens.
money.
that does
Yeah,
happen.
but-
yeah.
Unless you grind it and take it all the way down the base and rebuild,
even
the
then.
crack will come right through the new base.
But if you, can you fill it up with something? No,
It'll reflect through, then you can crack seal it, but it'll continue to. But
That's crazy. Put a ceiling over, put a roof over. it.
That's
Yeah.
what we've been doing.
And a heater in the road.
Special projects.
I didn't think so.
so
all right,
moving down vegetative management, we brought that down, but there's still a little bit to maintain that. We do have the invasive species project up above. So they kind of, I don't want to say they offset, but just came down. Winter salt,
Basically.
What?
Vegetative management's at mowing. roadsides.
No, most of this now is technical tree removal. So,
which means trees you need to have professionally removed.
exactly, yeah, they're near power lines, they're
And that's hired out.
dangerous. That's hired out, exactly, yeah.
salt went up 34%.
I saw that, but the averages don't quite ring up to me at 120 when I look at 20 and 21 and 22 to date, knowing we're 6 weeks away from the end. The numbers, just including the 34%, don't come up to 120 for me. I know where the 120 came from. It's 90,000 times 134. But when I take the averages of the previous 2 years plus the current year to date, add 6 weeks, I come up with something that is budgeted, should be budgeted less than that.
But then we look at 2020, that was 104, so it's highly dependent again on what we have. If we have a heavy ice year, we're gonna use every bit of that 120.
You
If we don't,
use the
and
salt.
I hope we don't, then
Yeah, we were actually pretty lucky the last couple of years. The price, right?
Very
then
lucky,
really,
yeah.
It's been more and more warm and cold and stayed cold.
Oh, that's what the almanac told me.
Jim, we buy all that salt, we can keep it. Don't have to sell it back.
No, exactly. No,
Pay the
and
salt shed, right?
And with the salt shed, we try to maintain a salt a salt fund balance, if you will, so that if we do have the ridiculous year, we can take a little bit of that. But yeah, we have I think about 200 tons in the shed right now, and there's room to order, and we'll be ordering. They're just starting to haul salt now, so we will backfill that.
What's your capacity?
If we use, it's about 150 tons per bay. And we typically use 2 or 3 for pure salt. The other ones are a mix or we do keep some manufactured sand under cover to keep it dry.
So either 3 or 450.
Yes, yeah.
So
so
wait,
we
I
will
lost
be
count.
spending more
Sure.
money there this year.
Yeah, I don't wanna, begrudge it too much, just that the
Right
averages
now, in
didn't
stock, we have
quite
about
justify that,
150,
even
200
with the
tons of
large
salt.
Out of.
price increase.
We can,
Yeah, I
well,
think,
if
well, we had a couple-
made all salt and they were
last year
6
was
bays,
low,
it would
and
do
last-
150 tons per bay.
The first
Per bay,
part
yeah.
of this
yeah.
year was.
But we
low.
typically use 2 or 3 bays for.
When
pure
I
salt.
look back, I looked at the
Um,
104.
we have a
065,
50/50
but
mix, yeah.
At
Yeah.
today's cost, we will exceed 120.
Right.
By $15,000, $20,000.
You have to buy all at once at the beginning of the year.
No, well, we have to commit, but they will deliver it, just with phone calls, so.
You have to tell them I want 600 tons. this year.
Exactly, yeah, I think I signed a contract for one, for 1,200 tons, I think it was. And so, they'll deliver that to us. They like to have increments of 20 tons, because that's what their trucks haul. So typically we buy in 100 or 200 tons at a time.
It's 20 tons.
No salt storage in the upper valley. Comes up by rail and there's no salt storage.
It stores in the cars on the track.
That's all it is.
So when you're on Glen Road and you see the cars, that's what's in
what
them.
those are.
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
So would it,
Lights,
I have a
Electric.
silly question. So would it make sense if we budget a certain amount for salt that we just buy it and have more stored on site?
If it was cheap.
Price doesn't go down based on volume.
Price never goes down.
Yeah.
Right? Price never goes.
Well,
down.
it does. It's
We're
been as
limited.
high as 75 and then we paid 58, I think 2 or 3 years ago.
But it's not based on volume. If he doubled what he wanted,
Yeah, it doesn't
his
matter.
price wouldn't drop.
That's
a penny.
The price.
Right,
It's the nationwide price of what it's going for.
You just
Whether
think,
he buys 500 ton or 300 ton, his price is the same.
right. But what I'm saying is, if there's a year of less use, is there harm in us just having more stored?
as long as we have the storage capacity, you don't want
Right,
to just
yeah.
pile it on the ground or.
Right.
Or if you know the price has gone down considerably.
Yeah, we do that and we do that in budget management, that, let's fill it up with this year's money and conserve next year's, knowing what we have, if we
Right,
have
because
budget left, or we'll say,
Right.
let it empty a little, we're about.
He gets to April 15th and his bins are low and the price dropped 25%. He may decide to spend this year's budget money and try to top it off.
Well, their season, it's a state bid that goes
Yeah.
through the winter, so.
Right, yes, yeah, exactly. It's a seasonal.
So
Like,
it's not
I'm
gonna
more like-
drop mid-season or something.
A silly CIP way. Right, have a certain amount that you do every year and then you just, you fluctuate to storage rather than the
And
amount you
That's
spend.
essentially what we do. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
but we can't.
But we don't store, an entire year's worth. I'd say we typically hold maybe 20% of what our yearly use is in here.
That's not that much.
And,
That doesn't give
We
you
need
much
storage for like
flexibility.
No, the cost of building storage to hold a year's supply might be $1 million.
Right, yeah.
It's not worth it.
I was just
there.
mental thought thinking.
He's doing a good job.
More so.
So, street lighting was electric rates again.
Shut off some lights. I still see timers throughout town. I don't know what our program is for that. But I'll still see timers skewed on a regular basis and wonder. It's a small thing, but it's like me setting off the lights in the house, you know?
they're all photos. Timers on. It's just it's an on it.
So at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if the lights are going, it's bad photocell.
It's overcast, bad photocell, or bird crap on the eye, you know, we've had that a
Okay.
lot, so.
Okay.
But yeah, I've noticed the Veterans Park is on an inordinate amount of time right now.
So is the bridge.
And the bridge, yes, yeah, and so. The,
Middle of the day, the bridge is on.
that's Shaker Bridge?
Yeah.
Okay, we just replaced a street light in there, and they were supposed to alter the programming. And that one might be on a timer, and our timer hooked to a photocell.
I think the public becomes more sensitive to it now that we're all paying 22 cents a kilowatt.
Oh, definitely, yeah, and those are supposed to dim at about midnight
Yeah.
and run at 50% through the night, and then,
We might not notice that, though. We might just.
yeah. But again,
I would
we,
notice it because I can read in my bedroom across the lake.
really?
By those lights.
Really?
They're on plenty.
Yeah.
and Plenty bright.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night. I don't, if I get up in the
Yeah,
middle of the night,
and
I
so-
don't turn the light on.
So, yeah, so we had them, they had to replace a bulb, and they were in at the control panel, and they may have screwed up the
Yeah,
programming.
we can look
and
at that.
I'll get after that, yeah.
I think the public's gonna become more sensitive to that sort of thing in the future because of the cost of electricity.
Well, and lights are one of those things that for every person that says it's too bright, there's someone that says, oh, we gotta
Well,
have
fair enough.
more
Yeah.
lights.
Yeah.
Cause that was when we were doing the bridge lights, that was a huge fight, and it was split right down the middle.
And we're all experts on lights. We all know how to turn off the lights, so that makes us expert.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm a fair distance from
Light
there,
shed.
so to have it that bright is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I'm beyond the islands.
Pardon me?
I'm beyond the islands.
Oh, my.
And it's very bright in my bedroom.
Well,
So
and there's also,
Interesting fact.
but there's also a lot of outdoor lights on. I don't know if you've been on go out to the lake at night, and there's a lot of landscape lights and things like that.
There's a huge amount of outdoor
Some of
lighting.
them
A lot of outdoor
Acres.
lights.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There is.
So the
But in
sanitation,
my little area, there's,
you're shaded kind of because of the island.
well, there's no streetlights. 'cause
Yeah.
My driveway's a
Yeah.
tenth of a mile tilting towards the lake from the boulevard.
Mm.
But at night, I can walk around in my yard by those lights. I don't
Mhm.
need to turn anything on.
the sanitation overtime went down. We use shift coverage to cover that. And making sure that we have enough money in there to cover it.
So the 350, are we covered for what we anticipate the new contract to be? Is that what you've written here?
That's what we're guessing. We
Yeah.
won't know till we go out to bid, so.
Well, and
We are-
this covers, we do have a 5-year extension that we could pick up. And this reflects that. And so if we did go out to bid or something, I don't know. I mean, Plainfield just went through this, and they went out to bid, and they had one bid, Casella, so.
Sure, exactly.
And so
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna get any competitive
there's
bidding. on
not a
this.
lot of
Competitive.
competition out there.
And you're probably gonna get a number higher than that.
Mhm.
That's,
Because
yeah,
they're
yeah,
We might right now.
They're getting
Right, yeah.
kilowatt for recycle.
exactly,
They're
yeah.
throwing,
Yeah.
they're basically throwing the recycling with the garbage.
Exactly.
I already stuck Jim Tiller once, so he won't let me do it again.
He's retiring, so it may not be.
Well, maybe he will let us do it.
Maybe, yeah, get him one.
They usually story behind that. They usually have a bid that changes on the recycling side.
Right.
And I made him lock the price.
Mhm.
And he's like, I'm gonna have to lock it higher than that. I'm like, that's okay. And that's when the
Right.
bottom fell out of the market and we did really well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He did not. Huh?
Where was that?
Weathersfield,
Weathersfield.
but I locked, it was, he
Right.
called me 6 months after our 5-year contract. Like, you won.
That was the idea.
I just wanted a balanced budget. I didn't want it moving all the time. And
So when do we have to renew?
6 months into this next year.
Yeah.
Is when we're up.
That's what my contract.
So we'll do a little bit of looking around and see if we think it'll be worth RFPing out, but it might be worth, especially in today's economy with fuel and all those, just to lock in that price. And
Do we have any chance of getting the truck we were supposed to get? With the original that was going to be, rather than 2 trucks, 1 truck?
Yeah, I don't think they ever bought
They never
one
bought
of
it.
those. I don't know
they're
if they,
using some of them,
they're, yeah,
the
well,
single truck.
The single truck that you put recycle and it's got. a-
Yeah, I've actually gotten complaints that they're
lever
putting recycling in the trash. And I'm like, no,
Oh, yeah.
it's one
No,
truck.
It's
and
one
they
truck with a
Mhm.
lever in
some
the
both.
middle. Yeah. Cause we were supposed to get that, and the one that they had bought
How
for
are
us
they
didn't have
doing
air
that? If
conditioning.
they come. twice.
Yeah.
So they
Come twice.
sent it further north.
Yeah, they
Some
just
of them
don't
do that. I
Yeah.
had complaints on the other side and I actually got behind one and watched them
Oh,
dump
yeah.
one and grab the other and dumped it. And
Oh, yeah.
so it's one truck.
Yeah, I've
that
seen 'em.
separates.
I've seen them work too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Where they go just from both barrels are there and they pick them both up and they go in different sides of the truck, basically.
That was
Front and
saved
back.
a lot, because
Well, that's where the expense is.
Yeah.
It's not what they have.
They
That's not-
did.
They
have
do,
some.
they do have some.
They aren't
That's just
doing
not
that
what they
anymore.
have.
That, not in our area, they
No,
don't
they
use.
do.
Yeah.
I've followed them
Comes in
down.
the
That's not what
morning
goes
and
down
comes
Chase
later.
Boulevard.
No, not in Enfield.
Oh.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, they've got one in Enfield?
I've watched them dump in Enfield
and you've heard about it.
in one truck
Yeah.
at one time.
Just that's
That's not
they do
what we
all the
get.
time.
Well, they don't.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, they usually have the
I
one.
fielded
The one
town
that-
manager
the one
phone
that
calls
comes
that they're
and does
just
the
putting the
trash, and the next
recycling
guy
in the
comes,
trash.
does recycling.
Exactly,
An
yeah.
hour later.
Yeah.
One truck that does
Right.
both.
Yeah,
So there are a few of them floating
Right.
around, but
On our route, they come by and they make a trip.
Yeah.
Go to Lebanon and get rid of it.
Mhm.
Same truck comes back, picks up the recycling.
Right, that's the way it is with us.
And that's why there's 4 hours
And that's the
between
way it
trash
is
and
at my
recycling on our route.
I said that that's the way it is at my house. I've never seen them, but.
right.
Yeah.
But I actually have followed them on, I think High Street was one of them, where they
Okay.
had the one truck that did them both, and
Oh.
so.
Do you know how many trucks they run to do it all?
In our town,
Oh, I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know, they do different areas, different
Uh,
days.
yeah, they're in town 4 days a week.
I know. I know.
So they're running at least 4 routes.
Right.
And they probably.
No,
don't
it's
just
5
about-
actually.
It's 5.
Just 5?
Yeah, Friday's commercial and they do
Commercial, they
mobile
do
home
right,
parks.
right,
And Meadow
right.
Lane. I think.
Yes.
And then they have another guy run around in case somebody forgot their trash.
We had, yeah, they do.
Oh, they
That's
do.
usually when I send them an email.
Yeah.
See if that's what happens.
You call them if you forgot and then there's somebody on Friday.
Yeah,
With the old fashioned way, he has to get out and pick it up and throw it in
Yeah.
the back.
But right now it's like Comcast, one-stop shopping.
Yeah.
You don't have any choice.
You know. So then what's the point of putting it out to bid?
We'll look at it and we'll make a decision whether it's
Right,
worth
but
putting it out to bid.
It's gonna be like Plainfield. Who else is it gonna be?
But we'll look and see. There's always people out there. There's more than one company around. But whether they did or not, or want to come over here, it's a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not a lot of.
yeah. They're jobbers, but you know, they have a small route.
So Shane.
Boshain and those
Boshain,
guys. Yes, exactly.
Okay, we have 12,000 on the next one, but I'm gonna relook at that, because we were at 11,714, we're probably gonna be a little higher. And supplies went down a little bit for sand, salt, and cleaners for sanitation. Little stuff. Landfill costs, tipping fees are up. Recycling is up, like you said. Capital outlay, so this is the Maple Street improvement that we were talking about. Put 250 towards that, so that's on top of the 185 for paving. Now we're moving into water, the water fund. One thing we did change a little bit was we decided we needed to budget some legal money, not that we expect legal, but we have been using some legal services every year, and this will just help us track that a little bit better. It was just getting coded to a different line. Employer paid ICMA, that went up a lot because of me. My retirement, it's not through New Hampshire retirement, it's through ICMA, so this is just divided through us. Telemetry and SCADA prices went up.
What is that?
That's the computerized electronic equipment that monitors our water.
Oh, cool.
Pumps and so forth.
Not the meters.
No, it's mostly the stuff that just monitors the wells in different areas, and if there's any fluctuation that we should be aware of, it'll text somebody.
Just pick somebody randomly out of the phone book, send a text. Hope they know how to.
You may have seen
Have to have to fix the sewer station.
An off the topic question. With our water department, who owns the meters?
We buy them. Do we own the meters then?
Yes,
Do we bill for the meters?
yes.
And if the meters need changing, do we just do it as part of our maintenance cost?
It's part of this, there's a meter fund before that, yes.
Okay, but the customer does not pay the plumbing charge to change out a meter.
Right, we would change it. If somebody wants to, relocate it or do something and they have to put in a new horn, that's on the customer.
Sure.
Once that's ready, our guys will come and set the meter, set up the radio and
Or if
and the
there's a need to
wires.
change the meter,
Correct, yeah,
our guys will change the meter
yes, yeah,
at no expense to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, we collect
That's not
quarterly for that.
entirely true,
It
because
gets charged to the sewer.
every bill we pay toward a new meter.
Exactly.
There's a meter fee.
Oh, there is a meter fee.
There's a meter
Okay.
fee quarterly, yes.
Oh, there is.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, because we set
That's right.
that up
Right.
originally.
It's
That was on
$3
that
and some odd cents.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
seems to have worked.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that way you're not suddenly having an expense. You've been collecting every quarter from
So
everybody.
the water fund is completely self,
Yes.
self-funded, self-funded. Yeah. Same with sewer, even though it's running.
Yeah,
higher.
Their own enterprise.
Right.
So the next one is just the cost of software, billing and meter software support going up. The next three are utilities. Have a running theme. New and replacement equipment, so this one. Obviously higher, almost $9,000 higher. They're requesting a purchase of new water leak detection equipment. It's fancier equipment. I can let Jim explain it, but it should help us find leaks a lot easier.
Yeah, we want to be able to monitor the system for leaks. And we talked about that Christmas water break. When we got out there and pulled that piece of pipe out, it was obvious that had been leaking for a number of years.
Oh, yeah.
And, the guy that lived there, he goes, "Oh, I've always wanted to mow that, but it's always too wet. Hey, why don't you call us and have us come take a look?" But anyway, if, this equipment, you set it up in various locations and it listens. And then they talk to each other, so it sort of triangulates where there might be a leak. And then you can go out with other, listening devices and try to find those. And so, the cost of that Christmas break you know, we had to dig that up twice because we did it once on Christmas to just put a Band-Aid on it, and then we had to actually fix it about 2 weeks later. You know, that was like almost $5,000 right there, and if, you know, if we could have been out in June and found that and fixed it in July, it would have been, you know, way better way to do it. And not to mention, you know, how many years did we pump an extra 5 gallons a minute or 2 gallons a minute, or whatever it was, to that site and paid to
Oh, yeah,
extract that water and everything, so.
And as soon as you fixed it, my water pressure went up,
Yes, exactly.
because I'm one block up, further up the line.
Yep,
So my pipes knock when they never did before, because there's more.
because there's more pressure in
There's
there.
more
Yeah.
pressure.
Yeah,
Gonna raise your bill because of it too.
yeah, that's right.
So you would
Need to,
only
like,
use that if
understand.
somebody's reporting.
No, we would use that on an ongoing
Ongoing,
basis. We
so-
probably try to do it 2 or 3 times a year at least.
Somewhere.
Or if we suspected something, you know, because we can see the trends in the SCADA, you know, how much water we're pumping, how long the pumps are on, you know, how long it holds overnight, is it dropping off fast? You can see something and say, boy, something's going on,
Mhm.
and then where do you start? And I think this device will do that. And, you know, these devices were $30,000, you know, 8 years ago. And now they're, you know, within that. And we'll also explore, you know, splitting the cost with another system, because, you know, frankly, you know, if we're gonna use it 2 or 3 times a year, it's gonna be available and be able to do that, so.
Does it actually cost us anything to extract water per unit, or is it amortization of the equipment?
There's that, and then, well, the electricity to run the pumps. Yeah, which is about, it's about $1,100 or $1,200 a month.
And you've got propane that you're burning for something, right?
That just, yeah, that heats the building, and then some of them have electric heat.
What was the reason for the high year-to-date actual? 20,000 instead of the budgeted.
Oh, yes, we've been doing a meter upgrade radio read system.
Okay.
And so we bought a lot of radios on that, and depending on where we came out, we were gonna maybe ask to have some pulled out of the water capital reserve to, you know, get this back to even. But I think it's gonna be pretty close. I don't,
Yeah, we'll watch the bottom line budget on
Yeah.
that, decide how we want
It-
to do that.
This is the engineer and me thinking,
December 5th.
is there a way to tell how much more water we're pumping than we're delivering to the meter?
yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we pump about 26 million gallons a year,
Okay,
and we're billing for about 22,500 per year. And that's been fairly consistent. So we do have a,
wait, see those numbers again?
You got units.
Yeah, you got units wrong because you're
22.5
saying millions and thousands.
Right. 26 million you're pumping,
26
and you're
million,
billing 22.5.
22.5 million.
Right.
Ah, you
Yeah.
said thousands.
Yeah.
Did I? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
That's a lot
yeah,
of village.
That's,
Yes.
that's,
We need
yeah,
that
so
leak
that's,
to-
You know
yeah.
that water leak we were
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. So,
wait.
you know, in terms of a percentage, it's, you know, it's pretty good compared to New Hampshire average. But still, there's some work to do. And again, those numbers were from last year, and that Christmas leak has been fixed. We found
Street.
2 other ones that were not significant, but they're there. And then, we just turned one off the other day that was found, we had a leak detection grant that the state gave to us. And their guy came in and they found one that was, across from Petromart on the hydrant. It's underneath the Route 4. And so we just turned the hydrant off, took it out of service, and well, you know, you can see it on the graph, the tank level. It really, you know, it helps.
cause that's 15%.
Yeah.
That's not small potatoes.
But you have that hydrant repair on your docket yet to do?
Well, we shut the valve so that it wouldn't leak anymore. We will repair it in the spring probably, because it's gonna we have to rip up the Route 4 to do it. And so, yeah, but, so the 15%, I mean, there's mobile home parks that have 80% leak, you know,
Right.
they're pumping twice what they need, and So in a way, we're good, but there's always, you can always do better. And
Yeah.
that's what you wanna work towards. And so I'm interested to see, to go back throughout this year and with these repairs that we made to see, you know, if we're closing that gap.
Are you guys still researching smart hydrants?
Well, I think this thing that we've requested would kind of take the place of that. It wouldn't be online all the time like a smart hydrant, but I think this is a lot less money and it's more versatile because you could, you know, use it in another system or, you know, Shaker Village could borrow it, you know, kind of thing. And that would be a start until those things really kind of come on strong.
I think they should rent it.
Rent it, yeah, we could do that too, absolutely,
I'm with you.
with an operator.
The meters and backflow prevention, we bumped that up a little bit. That's part of the meter program as well.
So on that, I thought the user had to pay for the backflow prevention valve.
Yeah, they
Yes, they do,
do
right?
it and they maintain it, but we have to test it and the town has, you know, we've got 30% of the units in the
Mhm.
district the town owns, so.
Okay,
We've had to repair a couple of those the last couple of years. A lot of old buildings.
so on that, basically, you're saying that line is for town properties.
Yes, basically. I mean, the backflow part of that, yes, yeah. And then the other part is the, you know, the funded meter part.
Does that mean should be adjusting to the users? The amount we pay each quarter, not that I want to.
Yes, no, that is on the docket for December, if it takes
So,
effect in
Would
January.
you need to increase if you made that adjustment?
We will be increasing that, yes, that's the plan.
But I'm
Yeah,
saying,
the expense still needs to be budgeted.
Right,
Right.
Yeah, okay.
but
That's
there
on the
is
revenue side.
offsetting revenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
The production and storage, there's just increased cost due to higher materials.
There's obviously a bill coming,
Yep.
we're hoping.
Yeah,
Debt service is a good one. It went down a
Yeah.
lot. And then on the second one, we do have an $8,000 interest only payment for the projects that we're doing now until they get completed. And then we'll move over to making the full debt payment.
Is that the bond that was the 1.9?
Yeah.
Don't they tell us to double your principal payments on a house loan?
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do.
Why would we why is it? Why would we want to pay interest only?
Well, we don't have the loan fully right now. We're doing the project and then they'll fund it after, but for the amount that we took out, we have to pay interest only till the project's done through an SRF loan through the state.
Seems like you could figure out.
State rules.
State won't let
State
you.
money.
It's worth it. We're doing a $1.9 million project for less than $1 million. Because they're gonna forgive a lot of the grant, so,
and the rate is good.
and the rate's really good.
Got it.
So no special projects this year. We're still working on the other ones. When we moved to sewer, kind of same thing. Legal fund, we're starting to put in there. Employment, just wanted to count those in workers' compensation, that those are year-end transfers, so they're at 0 right now. Employer paid ICMA is the same, that's my retirement, that's new.
I have a question on personal administration. So there's all the benefits, but there's no salary. Does that make
Personnel
sense?
administration is just the benefits. Salary comes under the wage line. Under, it's gonna be fourth through.
Oh. Next page, thank you.
Yeah.
Those we're going through this highlighted list again, telemetry skate is the same as the last one. There's cost is going up. Administrative repair service contracts. So copier share and meter reading support gone up. Did you want to talk about your meter reading program?
Yeah, we've been working on the automatic system with so where each, instead of having a touchpad, each address we're installing a radio so that you can drive around and they automatically get collected and then can automatically be uploaded into the billing software program. And I think we're over halfway through the water and sewer customers, and it's already, it's cut the reading from, took two guys a whole week of man hours to do the reading, and this last time it was just over 2 days, and it's been great. And so we always struggled in the winter to, read anything on Route 4A because a lot of those cabins or camps are not occupied. And it's a ski jump to go down, and they're not plowed and so forth. So we started there, and we're kind of coming up through the village now and getting them done. And it also gives us the ability to, they call it data log. So you can go to the radio and load in the last 95 days of data that meter has counted, and it gets it down to like 15-minute increments. So, I've had a few people that have called and said, "Oh, I don't know what the heck's going on," and we'll go and we'll pull the data log. You look in and you can say, "Well, on this date, you used 2,000 gallons, and every other day you used 100." And they're like, "Oh God, what happened then?" I said, "Well, somebody washing a car, did something break? Did you replace a water heater? Whatever." And you start quizzing them, and sooner or later they're like, yeah, I think, well, we had company that weekend and the kids had the sprinkler on, these things. And so it gives you some data, and then we can drive around too. And it will flag continuous use. So, we called up on Sergeant Street. There was a customer that he had no idea what was going on at one of his tenants, and we drove up, saw it, and it tells you right then that something's going on. So you call them up and say, "Hey, I think there's a leak or something going on in your mobile home there." And sure enough, you found a burst pipe, and it's underneath the skirting and everything. And he thanked us because, he only had to pay a week's worth of split instead of 2 months worth of split pipe. And so it gives you a lot better customer service.
Can the customers get access to that data themselves?
They're moving in that direction. That is going to be a component that you'll be able to look at your own thing, and we can put it on a bill, kind of like the electric company does.
Like, cause I can see my usage by the hour,
Yes, right, yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
My electric meter.
Yeah. This it will allow us to do that. We don't have, all the software and that kind of stuff. And we may be too small to do that cost effectively now, but we get, the equipment is available, so.
We have no administrative, we have no salary for the sewer people.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's on the next
Yeah,
page.
it's, but it's not on here.
It's on the detailed list.
This is just the one that changes.
It's
Gotcha.
last year's numbers plus 5%. At least for now.
No, that's what we budgeted. We just did a compensation. Electric utilities, again, they're up. I wanted to highlight odor control, that's down $2,000. I'll let Jim talk about that again, but we've been working with Lebanon on that. We have a program that we think is working well, so I don't know if you want to talk a little more, Jim.
Yeah, no, this year we had been using permanganate, permanganate to do this, but we changed to a caustic this year, and it's a lot cheaper, and you put a little bit more in, but it's Lebanon had a lot of odor problems down the road and at Bank Street and at, forget what the next step is, but there's it walks down through where it hits a pump station, fills up, pumps to the next gravity, runs into a pump, and it keeps sort of laddering down through. But they were having a terrible odor problems further down, and a lot of it's the retention time, you know, because we pump it, it's underground for a while. You know, there's a campground where people store stuff in their campers for days on end at high temperatures. So they're having that. And then this year they trialed that. We actually ran the odor control on our side for them. And so they paid for all the material. So we kind of had the sweat equity, but they paid for the material. That's why the 0 is in there. But I think next year that they're gonna run their own station. So, you know, we dropped it a little bit, and I'm not sure exactly how much they spent. That would be our share. And I gotta find that, because I may need to change that a little bit. It may go down.
And
We
that's,
didn't use a huge amount.
that's things we put in the sewage.
Yeah, so we added at our pump stations. Yep. Just drips in.
We do that. Water meters again went up, part of the water meter project.
So why is there a water meter line item under sewage?
That's how we bill for sewer. We use the water meters.
Oh, got it.
So even if you're only sewer, we have meters on our private wells. Shaker Village, it's on, you know, their water system.
Got
So that one's also offset by fees when they go up.
Yep.
So new and replacement equipment, is that just the cost of things going up?
Yes. Yep.
Wastewater treatment, I'm guessing is the same.
That's going up, I think Lebanon's told us 7.5, 7.2%, I think they said.
What's our leakage there, Jim?
It depends. This past quarter, it was excellent. I mean, I think we billed for almost 100% of what we sent, but you know,
So our manholes that are getting.
we have a seasonal, yeah, and groundwater, I think is a big thing.
Yeah, we were in a drought, so the drought.
Oh, that's what I mean.
The drought was
We
was a bonus for
If it
us.
rains down a manhole,
Yeah, because I think we picked up on this estimate, I think we were 50,000 to the net on that one because it was so dry.
yeah,
Oh, and that's one thing we're gonna do. We budgeted for some camera work, but we're waiting till it's wet so we can actually.
Yeah, see what's going on, exactly.
it's seeping in.
If we do
Yeah.
it now, we won't find it.
Yeah.
So then when's that, is it springtime a good time to do
Yes,
that?
that's
Yeah,
the
when
best
during
thing.
the run.
Yeah, we get hammered, and then there's, we've had a couple of nights where it was frozen and then it rained, and and Lebanon has the same issue, is that you just get buried, and, you know, the pumps are running twice as much as they typically do. And that's why we love it when it's cold the entire winter. It makes a huge difference.
So then again, on principal and expense, just wanted to highlight that it's come down a lot and we're paying 9,000 interest only on our current sewer project. Same thing.
I don't understand why we're paying interest only at.
It's terms of the loan.
Yeah, it's terms of the loan. It's not our decision to do that.
So do we have the DP departments? What it was last year versus this year? Like we have all the pages of all the changes, right? Do we have a number for, is
In
it?
the big book, right?
Well, it's not really in here too, because it's also multiple sections and pages you have to add on.
Yeah, I mean, we don't add water, sewer, all that.
No.
But
Just DPW.
Just DPW, is that in here? Probably not, right? So you have to add a whole bunch of stuff to that.
Well, there's a total expenditures line for each
The,
section.
pretty much.
well, for each section, so Public Works has more than one section, so highway is 4311 for administration, 4312 for roads and streets, so there's gonna be a breakup a little bit.
And each one of those budgets is considered a separate budget.
Okay,
They're not one DPW budget.
Got it.
When
You
I,
just-
when we're managing the budget, we stay within that page. Or
Yeah, okay, understand.
That's all I had to highlight. If you guys have questions for Jen.
When are we gonna take over South Road?
Never.
Okay, we'll give it to you. They wouldn't mind.
And so I also, throw this out, anybody that wants to come in and, get more into the weeds, I'm happy to do that. Mike has been in a couple of times to, say, well, how come we're doing this? And I
So we
think
can ride
it's good to
shotgun
get some
in a
stuff.
plow truck?
You've been in a few times too.
Can we ride?
Well,
shotgun in a
yeah,
plow truck?
yeah.
Can we drive a plow truck?
Well, we're looking for someone to run the sidewalk
Two
tractor.
AM, be out front.
Someone volunteering to run the sidewalk
We're about to
tractor?
Release a job.
Come on, Shirley, you and me. Put the wing out.
I don't think we could afford that.
No.
Mailbox here.
Put a mailbox
Yeah.
on it.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Any questions? Bridget, any questions as a member of the public?
We found this one.
I do have, one.
I'm shocked you're still here.
Hey, where have you been in the past? I'm dedicated. You know.
She's in the cemetery.
You stayed through the whole DPW talk.
Well, I like
Yeah,
to
you
learn
know what
these
she's
things.
doing.
I like to learn these things. I guess I brought it up in the past as a member of the public, and I have mentioned it many times. I guess the thought always remains, and I know this would have to be, I believe, a warrant and a vote to look at a calendar year versus, what we currently have as a calendar year and go to a fiscal year. Obviously, it's a little late to look at that for the following year, and it would have to be approved and all that anyways, but I guess it's food for thought. I feel like there are benefits, and
Yeah.
all those things could be discussed, so, but just my usual kind of throw it out there. I think it would be beneficial to the town, and particularly even thinking of Jim, who tries to get contractors, and just when our budget is passed, and as someone who now runs a budget, it's just bizarre to be a quarter of the way through the year by the time I get a budget. For at least a quarter of the year when, others are doing their new projects in the year, and the contractors and all of that. So it's just kind of a food for thought of, there are benefits to looking at a fiscal year.
It just seems like it would make so much more sense.
There's pluses and minuses. I've worked in a town that had a fiscal year, and the hard part is you're not even 6 months through your year and you're budgeting. And so you don't know what your expenditures are, and it makes that part of it difficult. You're pretty much running a year behind all the time on that side of things. But it is kind of weird to be a quarter of the way through the year. I think March probably isn't so bad, but the last few years when we've had April and May,
That's been
July,
really hard.
budgets.
Yeah,
More so on DPW,
yes.
because everybody's got the asphalt contract out there, because they had a March
Mhm.
town meeting, where if we had an end of late April, that's why the asphalting was in November, was because by then, the asphalt guys already built up all the way through September,
And they can't find help.
and they can't find help. And, yeah, I mean, the downside also to the fiscal is the first
The
year
new
you do
highway
it,
guy will
it's a
work at that.
6 month
He's good
year.
at that too.
Yeah.
You're basically gonna have a 6 month budget the first year you do it,
18.
and you're gonna be.
18-month budget.
First one's 18.
Year and a half.
Oh, it's an 18.
Yes.
Ooh,
What's that for?
If you switch.
If you go to
It's a
fiscal
transition
year.
to a fiscal year.
Yeah, because Hanover did that one year.
First,
Yeah,
you have
Hanover
like
did
it's doing
that.
18 month.
I mean, the obvious positive is your town meeting's in May and your year doesn't start till July.
Well, and I've seen the transition too.
Right.
And what people have done is almost what we did last year with the buildings. We say,
Right,
you know, do we want to go? If we're going to go, there's an 18th-month budget prepared and a 12-month budget prepared, and it's based on which way that other
Yeah.
vote goes, of which one you adopt, and
Oh, I see.
Oh, yeah, I see, yeah.
Is that a select
Right.
board decision?
it'd be a town meeting.
town meeting, town meeting.
Well, somebody has to put the article on the warrant.
Yeah.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the school district's got it, their budget season's over. They've already had all of their budget meetings. And they're on a fiscal year. So they basically started their budget 2 months into the year, 3 months into the year.
So could we do our budgeting season? I mean, could we shift our budgeting season too?
Not too much, because you gotta prepare for town meeting.
Right, your town meeting's in May.
We have town meeting in May, so you've got a
Right.
couple of months out.
That's been hanging over our heads.
Yeah,
Right,
you may
you gotta
be
be
able
2
to-
months
You move
out.
that to May.
Right. Yeah, and you're 2 months out for deadlines.
Yeah.
So you still gotta have it done by March.
Yeah,
So it's not that much different then.
Right, it's not much different than this, other than at least you're,
I worked on it in a different state, and it was still in May, March, when you voted.
right,
So,
So wait, our town meeting is normally when?
March.
March, right?
right.
So
And
if we had,
switch that, it would go to May.
all right, if we had town meeting again in March, as if it was not COVID anymore, we would, it wouldn't be as bad as it has been for the last couple of years when the
No.
meetings are like
Right.
halfway
Yeah.
through.
I mean, yeah, I mean, last year, you got it approved in May, you're already 4 months into, going on 5 months into the year before anybody knows what their real budget is.
All right, but if it
One
was
thing-
back in March, it
Back in
wouldn't
March,
be
it comes
as
back.
bad.
The one thing we can do, we did it in Claremont all the time, is we could put bids out in January, February,
Right.
pending the vote.
Yeah,
And they'll hold the dates, and they'll do that.
right,
We,
yeah,
I've done it.
because they've done it with cruisers, and things like that.
Yeah, the other thing we did there was we put out, well, we were on a June timeline.
Right.
In Claremont, and we put out one bid for spring and summer paving. Pending the vote, and,
Yep.
So. yeah, we can work on that part of it, we can have the discussion fiscal year or calendar year. Really doesn't matter to me.
Any other questions?
all right, well,
Make
thanks,
a motion to
everybody.
adjourn?
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
I used to.
I'm just gonna be real clear now. I finally said, we're talking about